We begin, though, as always, keeping them honest, with some startling new comments by Congresswoman Michele Bachmann about American history. Comments that are either a deliberate rewriting of our history or a sign she has a shaky grasp on our history. Now, you might wonder, why does this matter? Is this just an attack on a controversial lawmaker? We don't think so. Plenty of lawmakers, Republicans, Democrats, state and local and national officials probably don't know all they should about American history. TV anchors as well. But Michele Bachmann has repeatedly trumpeted her understanding of the Constitution and our nation's founding. She also reportedly has presidential ambitions of her own, and tomorrow night she'll be giving her own response to President Obama's State of the Union speech online. What she says matters because people do listen to her, and we think facts matter, particularly when it's facts about our founding as a nation. So here's what she said. You can judge for yourself. Speaking to a group called Iowans For Tax Relief, Congresswoman Bachmann seemed to whitewash our painful history over slavery. Instead of facing some of the less pretty facts of America's founding, she airbrushed herself some new history. Here she is talking about what people have faced throughout history when coming to America.
It didn't matter the color of their skin. It didn't matter their language. It didn't matter their economic status. It didn't matter whether they descended from nobility or whether they were of a higher class or a lower class. It made no difference. Once you got here, we were all the same.
Now, as much as we wish that was the case, as good as that sounds, that's simply not true. Whether she was talking about the founding of our nation or the experience of immigrants throughout our history, we were not treated all the same. Irish immigrants didn't feel the same walking past storefronts with signs reading "No Irish Need Apply." Japanese Americans didn't feel the same when they were placed in internment camps during World War II. And of course, enslaved Africans certainly didn't feel the same when they were brought here against their will. Michele Bachmann mentioned slavery, but only to say it was something the founding fathers couldn't wait to get rid of.
We know there was slavery that was still tolerated when the nation began. We know that was an evil, and it was a scourge and a blot and a stain upon our history. But we also know that the very founders that wrote those documents worked tirelessly until slavery was no more in the United States. And I think it is high time that we recognize the contribution of our forebears who worked tirelessly, men like John Quincy Adams, who would not rest until slavery was extinguished in the country.
Well, again, Congresswoman Bachmann has her facts wrong. Many of the founders owned slaves. George Washington owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote that all men are created equal, owned slaves. Jefferson was certainly conflicted about it, but others were not. And let's remember, the Constitution itself, as glorious a document as it is, the Constitution itself established a slave as 3/5 of a person. It was a political compromise. As for John Quincy Adams, well, Ms. Bachmann's right. He was a tireless campaigner against slavery, especially during his 17 years in Congress after leaving the White House. But he was not a founding father, as she sort of implied. He died years before emancipation in the Civil War. Now, this is certainly not the first time that Congresswoman Bachmann has gotten the facts wrong or invented her own facts. Just recently on 360, she claimed President Obama's trip to Asia would cost $200 million a day. We showed how that report was completely unfounded, tracing it to an unnamed Indian official quoted by a foreign news service. There are plenty of other examples, but we focus on this tonight not just because Congresswoman Bachmann is going to be speaking tomorrow night, but because we believe facts matter, particularly where our history is concerned. And one of the many things that makes this country great is that we're able to examine our past. We are at our best when we learn from the past, painful though it may be. Rewriting history does no one any good, doesn't honor our real history, and it certainly doesn't help us learn about ourselves. We invited Congresswoman Bachmann on the program tonight. She declined. We asked her for a statement that might explain her comments. She never responded.